right? Also, if you were TJ, like imagine the amount of people sliding into those DMs, men, women, whatever. TJ, you would have no time.
You would just enjoy it all.
I enjoy all that I enjoy. I'll say that.
Foot in mouth. Don't say anything more.
I try to be coy a lot on here, but it's not always easy when you serve me up easy shit like that. Guys, welcome back to another episode of Menage-A-Pod, the comedy podcast about sex, dating, and relationships. I'm your co-host, TJ. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, friend, and podcast life partner. What's up, Jenna?
Hello, how are you?
I'm spectacular. I feel like that's what I always say. Let's stick with that.
Spectacular? That's impressive.
So spectacular. Things could not be any better. I'm basically floating on air.
Wow. Can I be you right now? Because, like,
no.
No, just no. Mm-mm.
It's like the Highlander, there can be only one.
Well, what is new with you? I mean, I feel like I don't have anything really to tell you, except for that I lost 1 pound to your 10.
And it's 14 for me now.
Oh, fuck you. This is bullshit. This whole fucking thing is bullshit. Give me some testosterone. Well, no, because then I'd be a dude. I don't know. It's just hard being me. That's all.
Is it really that hard being you? I feel like it's fairly easy being you.
I mean, in some ways it is, not in every way. But guess what else I'm doing? I literally
what else are you doing?
Right before we started to record, I
masturbating?
got a call. No, I haven't even had time to do that today. Such a shame. Today's been such a shit show. No, today, right before we got on, I got a call from the rescue place that I got Miles from.
Oh, is there another doggy in your future?
I think so. To foster. Okay. It's a puppers. So I haven't had a puppy in a really long time. It's very cute. I'll have to send you a picture.
What about all the men who you don't name in your phone book? Isn't that not naming the puppies? Which, by the way, you know, Jenna, this is kind of funny. I know back in the day, you used to always try to say that I stole on brand from you, and I still want to say that I did not. But I've certainly stolen the concept of not naming the puppies, and I've used it so many times. I've even used it on other podcasts. I've said it in conversations with no less than 30 women. So I've officially stolen that. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a good one. I just sent you her picture. It's a girl, and her name is Jenner. And I don't know what she is, a long-haired chihuahua of sorts she looks like, but she's so
I feel like that's what someone with a speech impediment would call you. Like, hey, Jenner.
That's rude.
that dog it's so cute. It almost looks like a puppet. What the fuck?
I'm saying. It looks not real.
Oh, I just want to love that little raggedy baby.
Like 6 pounds. 6 pounds. That's like a hamster. Or
that's like half a pound more than Spike weighs.
Oh my God, I'm going to just eat her up. I may not give her up. That's the problem. But she's going to pee everywhere because she's a puppy. I haven't had.
And they call that foster fail, right? When you adopt your foster. Yeah, I see that happening. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
What am I going to do? I don't want to be that girl who has a tiny little dog, a chihuahua.
Why? I mean, I'm that dude who has a tiny little dog, a chihuahua.
It feels different. It feels different for a man.
I think it's almost cute because like I'm a bigger, more aggressive human being and I have this like tiny little baby dog.
Yeah, I think so. For me, they'd be like, "Oh, you're so basic." I'm like, "No, this dog's just really cute," and I failed. I don't know.
It's okay to fail. If you're gonna fail at something like fostering a dog. I think it could be way worse, right?
I know, except it's a puppy, right? So like having a puppy in the city different than. Like if I lived in the suburbs, I just let that little shit out in the backyard to go to the bathroom. Great. But I don't know. This feels like a lot. We'll see. Check back with me. I'm supposed to.
TBD.
If they need me, I pick her up on Sunday, and well, we'll see what happens.
I know what I'm doing on Sunday.
Well, is it come over here because
I
I don't know how I'm actually supposed to get this animal. It's in.
Oh, let's pick her up. Let's do it.
It's in Milwaukee. I don't.
Dude, road trip. I'm in.
We might have to because I think DJ and Joe are gone this weekend. So
Jenna, I will 100% take you to go get this cute little dog. Fuck yes. Yes.
Okay, because I might need a ride. I don't know how else I'm supposed to get there. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. I'm stoked. I'll put it, it's penciled into my calendar.
Yeah. So I feel like you've got some fun things to tell me.
Kind of a lot, man. Like I'm sort of stoked, and this is all like right up my alley. And to borrow a phrase that you think you gave me, and that two people in my life hate that I say, this is very on brand for me. That I'm excited about this. Mm-hmm. So, as I mentioned in a couple previous episodes, my first TikTok video, which I put up maybe 3 weeks ago, it's got about 80,000 views. Which I was excited about that, but then over here in Chicago shared a meme I wrote, and it got shared like 7,000 times in 24 hours. Which blew up my inbox for like 3 straight days. What?
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll show you my inbox on Sunday. And on even crazier note, yesterday I was doing a photo shoot with a woman I know who's actually a really talented pole athlete. She does like aerial work and pole dancing. And we set up this temporary pole at North Avenue Beach, like right against the wall, like close to the water, overlooking the skyline. And so while we're out there, this one, people are starting to come around and watch, and there's comments, and it's all like very like you go girl, and super people are being positive about it. People are like asking questions, are real interested. No one seemed offended, so it didn't matter if it was like woman, children, kid, whatever. Everyone was like into it. And it wasn't like hypersexual. She was definitely like, we were taking photos of specific poses, which are all like super athletic moves. Well, sure. I see this like really pretty dark hair woman like walking up the side of the shore, and she's definitely like, as someone who's taken my share of like creeper Instagram stories in public where I just want to like put crazy shit up, I could tell that's what she was doing. So I just like shout out to her and I say, hey, this going on your Insta stories? And she kind of giggled and turned the other direction, and she was like busted. And I was like, oh, that's kind of the end of that. So I'm on my way home yesterday from the shoot after like unloading all this equipment, dropping my client off at her place. And I get a text message from a buddy of mine, Barstool Sports Chicago. This girl sent this video. So her name is Danielle Presto. Her Instagram handle is DeePresto. She sends this in to Barstool Chicago. By the end of yesterday, it had like 140,000 views. Wow. My Instagram following yesterday, I got like 130 new followers. Wow. Again, DMs like crazy. We had a huge amount of new listens on the podcast. Danielle, who I told I was going to mention in this, she actually then reached out to me to do some photography work for this yoga studio that she works for called Yoga. Actually, I think she might be a co-founder. It's called Yoga 2.0 in River North. Mm-hmm. So that's the most random shit ever, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, I was in the Barstool comments, like kind of getting pissed off because there were a couple of people that were like, that's so inappropriate. And being kind of, it's like, dude,
you follow. That one person was like out of control. I was like, Karen, sit.
So many of them were out of control. And it's just like, hey guys, you follow fucking Barstool Sports. This is not like the paradigm of like moral goodness here. These are like, you are all, you know what? You know who didn't follow it prior to that? Me. Because I'm not a shithead. So if you're following Barstool and then trying to like have moral high ground, you need to check yourself because you're garbage and so are they. Just kidding, but no, you're garbage.
But like, no, because it's Barstool.
It really is. Mm-hmm. I mean, and so in retrospect, I'm like obviously glad that happened because numerous people, I got that screenshot from like literally hundreds of friends, and I was getting like messages like all day long. Got a bunch, like I said, a bunch of new followers. People are already like, can't wait to see how these photos turn out. I had a couple people like reach out to me about potentially doing poll sessions with them and also like wanting to buy prints of this session. So I'm super stoked.
Aw, that's great.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I did see when you sent me the post, I did see some of the back and forth comments and all that stuff. So I did see that you were answering, and I wanted to just be like, I wouldn't even bother. But you had some solid points on your...
Oh yeah, I was trying to just like, I wasn't getting angry, and I was just responding in a way that was like, I mean, I really was trying to stand up for my friend who I did this for, because she's just like super wonderful person, and they were definitely being really shitty about her. And so I was doing that. And like not being a dick to anybody. I may have commented on one guy's comment from one of my fake Instagrams, and actually was the best roast in the whole thread. And now I can't even really claim it because it's from an Instagram with no picture and no name and no tie to me. Which now you all know. Be on the lookout for that. That's embarrassing. Oh, and then one last piece of info before we jump into anything of more substance. You'll get a kick out of this, Jenna. So, historically, like women that I've dated, like haven't been super, they're like stoked about the podcast when they meet me. But then if they actively start dating me, then they become less stoked about the podcast. So there's someone who I'd been seeing, and she said that she was like, got in her car and her phone, it just like randomly started up her radio with the Peacock Don't Cockblock episode. And she's like, I hadn't listened to an episode of your podcast in like months. It was so random. And that's the one with our boy Josh, or GQ50. And she told me two things. She's like, first of all, Josh's voice is so sexy, which
you know how I love him. I can't.
I listened to the episode today just so I could hear those sweet dulcet tones of his. But she also said she was walking through the Whole Foods with her earbuds in, just like laughing out loud. And she was like, I hadn't really listened to it as like someone who was just listening to it. She's like, I listened to it as someone who like knew you, which kind of like framed my perspective of it. So, but it's really funny and well done. And I was like, if you could just tell everyone that'd be great. So thank you for that.
Put that shit on the, comments or whatever. Rate it. Review it. Tell her.
Do all those things.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, it's funny because like I always get questions about it from people, and then that's exactly what they say. They're like, once we listen to it, we're like big fans. Like some of my clients actually the other day, it was funny. One of the girls on one of the teams that I work with pretty consistently, she had dropped off because she had transferred onto another team. And then I didn't know where she went. And then all of a sudden she popped back up in my inbox as like someone who had copied her onto a thread. And I was like, oh my God, Katie. So hi, Katie. I was like, it's so good to see your name in my inbox again. And she was like, girl, I've been listening to your podcast. She's like, it's like you've been in my ear the whole time, even though I haven't seen you. So, I love it. And she's in a relationship. So I always just sort of assume people
fall off when they're with someone.
Yeah, but no, she's in a relationship.
You know what else, Jenna, that I wished you would have brought up and I didn't really think about last week when there was that kind of that viral challenge that was spurred on by the victims of violence in, I believe, Turkey, the Black and White Challenge. And one of our listeners, Nikki, who's actually someone that I know pretty well. She's great. She was someone who nominated you, and I saw your little message about it and back and forth between her. And I just thought that was like the cutest thing ever.
Yeah, that was super. It was really sweet. I actually, when we were talking back and forth about it, I was like, that's like the nicest thing that anyone's ever said to me. Unless you told me I looked super skinny, that probably would have been the other thing with my 1 pound. But this is second best.
Well, you probably don't remember, but we've actually mentioned that Nikki on at least like 5 episodes. She stumbled upon
I remember.
She stumbled upon the podcast from Laura Loves It Too, and then she went to college with one of my best friends from work. And so, like a girl Emily, who my friend Josh, who met at my birthday party last year, they're like besties, and so they're all kind of in the same social circle. And when she just reached out one day on Instagram, and we started talking a lot. And I think her husband is like from down by where I live. And so we just hit it off really early on, and she's always been a strong supporter of the pod. She's of the people who are purely like my social media friends I've never met in person. She's like one of the all-time greats. So friend of the pod, friend of TJ, friend of Jenna. Thanks, Nikki, for doing that. You are the greatest.
So great.
All right. Well, I think, Jenna, you know what would be a great thing to do like right this fucking second?
What?
To ask all of our wonderful listeners to check out our merch store at teespring.com/stores/Menage-A-Podcast and pick up a piece of our official merch featuring that iconic Menage-A-Pod bubble logo. The woman's V-neck.
Pour a glass of wine. But
it's great for that too. No, you know what you should do? You should have started this episode with a glass of wine. You should be pouring your second glass of wine right now. Yeah, you should chug that glass of wine while I do this ad read. And by the end of the ad read, you'll have a sufficient enough buzz to think, you know what I want to do? I want to get a women's V-neck tee for $25.99 and then a unisex comfort tee for my boyfriend for $24.99. And then while we sit in those, we're going to drink out of the Menage-A-Pod coffee mugs. So do that right now. Go to teespring.com/stores/Menage-A-Podcast. This is the absolute best way to support the podcast and to help us keep bringing you fun and relatable content, like all of the ways that I'm thirsting after social media notoriety.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if everyone listening saw the Instagram, but Ariel, one of our past guests, she's been on twice now actually. Her boyfriend, she and her boyfriend both bought merch, and they sent a picture the other day of him in it while they were making dinner.
That's adorable. I did see that picture. He looked great. It fit well. It was good to see it on a man.
I was like, are those muscles? What's going on? She was like, tell me if anyone, she texted me, was like, tell me if anyone hits on him and I will be really upset. And I was like, upset or like excited? She's like, a little of both.
So ladies, remember, if your husband or boyfriend or significant other, if you really want them to look great, pick up that unisex comfort tee. It's cut fit perfectly to bring out the muscles in your man. So go do that, right?
Yep, absolutely. And while you're at it, I feel like we're going to need you guys to go ahead and write some reviews and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Share the podcast in your Instagram stories. Share your pictures in our merch on your Instagram stories. Tell a friend. Tell 2 friends. 3 friends. I'm going to stop there because I don't know if I have more than 3 friends. But you guys get the idea. I mean, actually, TJ, you have like millions of friends now through all of your social media stuff. So maybe you should just constantly post about it.
I mean, I mostly do. Who the fuck you talking to? I'm like, I don't even know where like the social media persona ends and the real me begins. Like, it's just, the line is blurred more and more by the day.
It's fluid, just like gender.
That
I did there.
That's really good.
Segue.
Do
we have to cut that out? Because I feel like that was perfect.
No, we'll leave that right now.
So I had the pleasure of meeting today's guest through my friends that I lovingly call my 2 dads. Do you remember that show, TJ?
No.
You don't remember my?
Oh wait, with Paul Reiser. Yes, I remember.
Yeah. And actually, they found out that I called them that the other day, and they got really mad at me because they said they weren't old enough to be my dads, but one might be. So anyway, our lovely listeners actually might remember them. I mean, I talk about them all the time, obviously, but they were also on the episode called What's Love Got to Do with It? Their names are DJ and Joe. Anyway.
Lovers.
What'd you say?
I said lovers. I love DJ and Joe. They're like my favorite people, I swear.
They're great. They're really, really great. And quite honestly, I couldn't have survived this stupid pandemic without them. Although they've been going to the gym and stuff lately, and I think they're going to be flying. And I was like, no, because now you have to quarantine. I can't. Anyway, so I actually, our guest name is Winnie. We've sort of welcomed him into the family, and I use that with quotes because I feel like it sounds like the mafia. And 1, it's just really nice to have someone who shares my love of TikTok at the dinner table now. And 2, Winnie is just like such a funny, creative, warm presence to be around, which is really nice sometimes when you're sitting there arguing politics with DJ because we're very, very, very different. And Winnie and I feel like power in numbers, so it's great. Anyway, he's also starting a podcast called Winnie's World, where he's talking pronouns, fashions, and his take on the world through a queer perspective while sharing what it's like to exist as a non-binary person. So, Winnie, why don't you say hi, and then tell us like a little bit more about yourself, like what you do.
Hello.
All the good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the Menage-A-Pod.
Yes. Anyways, forever. I feel like it was only a matter of time.
I know, every fucking dinner I'm like, hey, when am I going to be on your podcast? I am an art director. I work in advertising. I am single for any of those boys who want to mingle. And funny thing, I love TikTok just like Jenna. I am obsessed. I have been practicing all my quarantine with getting my makeup skills on par and also my transition skills, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. So the other night when we were at dinner, he basically taught me how to do a video on TikTok, and then he made it for me, and then we just posted it on my TikTok.
the mwah tacos.
Figure it out.
I'm a little hurt right now that I wasn't told about this.
I mean, where were you? Where were you?
I'm going to look this shit up right now.
It was just about tacos.
Okay. About tacos?
Yeah. I mean, how can you go wrong? You can't go wrong with a good taco TikTok.
Yeah.
This is the content we're all here for, Winnie. The taco content.
It's improving content right there.
Yep.
I mean, you really can't go wrong with it. Who are we kidding?
Anyway, so Winnie definitely helped me with that because I fail miserably all the time, and I'm really just like, as we know, a creeper. But I don't know if you know this, Winnie, but like TJ has recently gotten into TikTok, and he is clearly a budding TikTok star.
Getting there. I feel like I saw your guitar video. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the big one was the video that I did about asking the girl out after 18 months and her finally saying yes. It's got like 80,000 views, I think, right now.
Oh my!
I know.
You know more than I do. You're more of a budding star than I am.
Oh, dude, I got 1,000 followers in there like in 2 seconds. Like it happened so fast. Like that once that video blew up, everything just started kind of moving quick. And I've kind of started becoming friendly with a couple other like budding people who are too old for TikTok but still love it anyway. And the advice that I had gotten is like once the first 1,000 followers is like the hard part. Once you have that, there's enough people that see your shit just immediately that it's easier to get that organic boost. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Jeez. I think I'm at like 300. I don't know. I want to look, but they start yelling. Oh no, I'm not even there. I literally have 120.
What is it with you, TJ? It's like the thing with TJ is that like he's so good at, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, like self-promotion that like I don't get it. I feel like maybe you could teach a class on it, TJ.
I mean, I would if people will pay me money, I will teach a class. It doesn't even need to be a lot of money. Give me like 2 tacos and a $10 bill, and I'll teach you something.
So like you know that like douchebag who like gets up on stage and he like talks about how like to get women, you like neg them and all that terrible stuff. Whatever his name is, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh my god, the alpha male guy.
Yeah, exactly. TJ, you could be the 2020 version of that about how to like promote yourself and like, right? I feel like I'm not
that big of a douchebag. Not that big.
I'm not saying you have to be. I'm just saying like, you know how he did that like seminars of like people like how to be cool and get the girls. Like this is like the 2020 version of it, of like getting the girls through leveraging all your social media kit.
Well, I mean,
TikTok.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man, Winnie, we have someone on the hook to come on an episode coming up soon, and she's in the last month, she's got like 30,000 followers on TikTok, and I'm like, I need to learn from you.
Yeah, maybe.
Seriously.
Maybe we.
I mean, half the battle is just being a pretty woman, though. Unfortunately, I feel like if you're just like hot and a girl, TikTok is built for you.
Really?
I don't know. I will say, I feel like a lot of the hot guys on there too are also getting all of it. So let me tell you. They just like stand there with their shirts off, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, 5,000 likes!" And it's like, me.
I'm not gonna lie. That's how I pick all of my TikTok.
I mean, me too. Like, let's be real. I want to see your content, and by content, I mean,
the downstairs intro.
The downstairs intro.
Here's the thing, though, about that is that like I don't know how that algorithm works, but like I was talking because obviously at work we sell TikTok. And because I work in social media. And so I was talking to one of the girls on my marketing team. We were coming up with like some creative ideas for a client. And I was like, I don't really know because all the videos I get served are of shirtless men. So like if you want to talk to moms with kids, I got nothing. Like, unless you're putting a shirtless man in there standing with their product, rubbing it all over his naked body, then sure, I'm your girl. But otherwise, I got nothing. Like it's crazy the content that I get served. Whatever.
There should be more of that. Honestly, that's all we ever want out of like TikTok content. Just like you're gonna serve me an ad, at least have like somebody just rubbing shit all over them. You're
Winnie.
Selling jelly? Into it.
Winnie, I've got to ask you, Winnie, as someone who's as big of a TikTok fan as Jen and myself, I know on Saturday, I'm sure a lot of people listening, if they are on TikTok, and even if they're not, they just pay attention to the news. They heard last week that our president, and by our president, I mean all of your presidents, he's not mine, said that he was going to ban TikTok by executive action on Saturday. When I woke up Saturday, I used TikTok with such furious intensity. It was like it was like heroin, and someone told me I was never going to get to do heroin again. I did like a 6 hour like TikTok. Like, if they're taking this from me, I'm going to mainline as much of this fucking shit as possible. What did you do on set? Were you nervous about it at all?
Oh, I was terrified because I was like, listen, I don't know how I'm going to edit all this music together and make these transitions look as good as I do on TikTok. And also part of my brand is I love fashion. So my Instagram is Winnie Wears What, if you want to hit it up, everybody. And part of that is I like to like incorporate my TikToks into my Winnie Wears What outfit of the day. So that'll be my big reveal is my transition. So like I literally was like, okay, I got to get like 7 of these going just in case. It was mortifying. So yeah, no, I was on TikTok all day Saturday. I was like ready to fight somebody. My dog was like, we were arguing. She was like, I gotta pee. And I was like, well, hold it, bitch. I gotta make this TikTok.
I think the best thing about all of it was when I woke up Saturday, I'm sure you got the same message. There was a message from like the US director of operations for TikTok. And it basically was like, we're not going anywhere. And I was like, ooh, a fight. Let's see it. I was like kind of excited.
I was into it. And then I saw Friday night, somebody from Microsoft like posted a video and was like, oh no, like Microsoft has been in the works to purchase TikTok, which is like why it's not going anywhere. So like, don't freak out.
Oh. And I feel like granted, it's not like Microsoft is, they're not like an altruistic company either. But if someone's going to have their data, my data, if it's between Microsoft and just the Chinese government, I'll give it to Microsoft.
And whoever, all you're going to really get is like, some sassy pictures of me. Do what you must with them.
Well, like, how does that even, I don't even know how that works. Like, what kind of data are they getting?
That's a good question. I don't know. Do you know?
I do. Literally everything you do on your phone. Whenever you get any sort of app, you agree to certain sets of permissions, like access to pictures, access to your audio, access. So most companies are generally just using that to like serve you a very customized ad experience. And if that's where their motive lies, that's not that horrible. Everybody does that. Pretty much every service you use, if you have a smart TV or a smart speaker, they're all doing that sort of thing. But if a malicious figure gets their hands on your like literally full access to your data, who knows what they could do? And that's not to say that, who knows what the Chinese government wanted it for, but I'm certain it's probably not the greatest reasons ever. So who knows?
Yeah.
Again, like you're really not going to get that much from me, but I guess I'm also not that much of an important person. So I'm assuming if somebody like in the government is on TikTok, that's where the no-nos come through.
Well, even there's been like questions about them being able to potentially like influence the presidential race by like using our data to like determine your political leanings, and then have like divisive agents on social media then interact with you, try to send you very targeted messaging to really influence that. So I think that's one of the bigger concerns. So even if you say like my information isn't that valuable, let me just tell you, your information is valuable.
Oh my God, stop it.
You're just valuable. Why don't we I think we need to get together, the three of us, and do some sort of like very branded TikTok content, whether that's like we learn a dance or we do a lip sync routine or whatever. We got to do something.
Let's do all of it. Let's do a dance, transition, makeup. It'd be great. We'll do it all.
Is it weird that I just got a toner? That's a TikTok boner for those of you out there.
Wow. Also, I feel like that's something that's going to take all day.
Oh, yeah. No. We get together. We start day drinking at like 11 a.m.
I'm in.
Maybe 10.
Say no more. You have to say no more.
Yeah, as soon as you said day drinking, Jenna was like, sold.
I know. I'm part of the family. These are just how we roll.
Okay, cool. TJ, you want to get into the intro so people are probably like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Sure, yeah. We get sidetracked with TikTok. I get a little excited talking about thirsty social media behaviors. All right, guys. So finding love, as we know, can be hard. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this podcast, right? But when most systems are set up for people who aren't like you, it's even harder. Dating advice is largely focused on a cis heteronormative society, which erases the experiences that non-binary people face in romance. Whether it's dating apps that lack appropriate gender options, transphobic partners who don't validate your identity, or misgendering based on appearance, there can be a lot of different obstacles for non-binary people to overcome. So we wanted to talk to Winnie today to dive a little bit deeper into that and to kind of what his experience has been like.
So, for those that that are listening that may not be familiar with what the term non binary means, I'm going to take this definition straight from the National Center for Transgender Equality. Or, Winnie, if you want to take it, you are more than welcome to explain it. Would you prefer?
You can take it away. You go, girl.
Okay, well, correct me if I'm wrong here. I feel like this is a solid source. It's not like I just, stole it from media, but, correct me if I'm wrong. So basically they say most people, including most transgender people, are either male or female, but some people don't neatly fit into categories of man or woman or male or female. So, for example, some people have a gender that blends elements of being a man or a woman, or a gender that is different than either male or female. Some people don't identify with any gender, and some people's genders change over time. People whose gender is not male or female use many different terms to describe themselves, with non-binary being one of the most common. Other terms include genderqueer. Is it agender? I'm assuming. Bigender, and more. None of these terms mean exactly the same thing, but all speak to an experience of gender that is not simply male or female.
Perfect.
You get
That is
it?
the best definition. There you go. You did it.
I mean, I take zero credit for it, but whatever, it's fine.
I mean, take it.
So talk to us a little bit about when you realized that you were non-binary. How young were you?
It started pretty young, and it wasn't. I mean, it's weird because that term I think is fairly
new.
I think new. Yeah, I think the term non-binary, the thing itself, is not necessarily new. But from my experience, I didn't really quite know what it was. But as a kid, I kind of was I'm more identified with girls, but I didn't really find it. I understood what transgender was at a pretty young age, thankfully, because I have a mom who's hippy dippy, kind of open to anything. I remember she asked me when I was 4, because I was I'm going to dream I'm going to be a princess tonight. She was okay, hey, you do you, kid. But from a young age, I definitely did not identify with a lot of boy things, a lot of boy gendered stereotypes, but also just in general, just being a boy, kind of wasn't necessarily my gig. But either was being a girl. So it started at a young age, and then kind of dipped out because I just kind of assumed oh, it's because I'm gay. And then I came out when I was I want to say 14. And I kind of assumed oh, okay, this is what I was struggling with. And then as I progressed through life, it kind of just rolled into it somehow just stumbled upon it, and ran into a lot of weird things where guys were you're really girly, or you're awfully feminine for a gay guy, which is a normal thing, not a normal thing, but it's a fairly common occurrence when gay men associate with a more feminine identity. But it was just something about the idea where it was I'm not a feminine man that was kind of troubling to me. It was more oh yeah, I'm just feminine. Mm-hmm. And then it was just through therapy and talking with a queer oriented therapist that I really kind of came to terms with the understanding of what non-binary was, and those kind of genderqueer different avenues you could go down. So it's kind of been a lifelong thing, but it's just recently come to terms with it over the last couple of years. So that's really where the story happened.
I mean, I would think that has to be difficult, right? Not just necessarily this quote unquote standards that society puts on people, but more so where do you fit, right? Sometimes it's nice to sort of just to be so black and white, right? I feel like it's easier, maybe nice, but easier living a life where you fit into a bucket, right? Even in high school, are you popular, or were you a jock, or were you, right? It's just sort of easier in terms of an identity to sort of have such a clear cut one, where I would think it might be difficult trying to see where you fit. Did you ever feel that way?
Yeah, and I think that really came to fruition more as an adult. I don't know how. I must have karmically drawn the best card ever, because I went to a high school where it was all sandbox love. All these kids I went to high school with were kids I grew up with. So nobody really gave a fuck. I'm sorry, can I say fuck on the podcast?
We swear all the time.
You fucking can.
Okay. Yeah. Nobody really gave a fuck what was going on. I was just kind of the girly gay kid that everybody knew from elementary school, and so like it didn't really bother anybody, and I really didn't have much aim with it. And like oddly enough, my prerogative in high school was not to date as many boys as I could. It was really just to kind of get the fuck out of there and be done with it. But it really was like after I graduated college, started like really actively trying to find my place in the world, and that's really where that longing to belong really popped up in that avenue, and in that area of my life where I was like, okay, like I don't really feel like a gay man. I like men, but I don't feel like a man myself. But I know I'm not trans because I don't like. I'm fine with my body and I'm comfortable with my physical attributes. But like gender and like internally, I just don't really quite know where the hell I'm supposed to fit in. And that's really where, the mental breakdown started, and like the depression really set in, because like it is kind of like a core identity. We as a human species are very like communal, and like to not really know where your community stands or where you are, it's very like othering, which is a huge issue. And so like when my therapist was like, oh, like you might be non-binary, I was like, the fuck is that? Like what? And so that was like I just remember that day too. It was like super eye-opening. I remember like I was just like in such a depressed state where I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't know who the hell I am, where I fit in. And then to really have like kind of like one avenue, like this door opened up where it was like, oh, well, guess what? There's this whole other avenue where actually we're understanding that gender is a spectrum, and like it's not black and white, it's not trans. Like there is this huge spectrum that people fall on. That was super eye-opening and just quite honestly life-saving. So it was a really wonderful experience. I'm just very grateful that I was able to understand it and meet people like myself through Instagram, honestly. And excuse me.
Through Instagram. So like,
yes,
so we're not that different then. Is that what you were getting at there, Jenna?
That's exactly what I was getting at.
Winnie, brother, if you knew how much I have leveraged social media into friendships and dating and just life, it's the greatest.
Oh, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It really, honestly, and not even, so I'm being kind of a douchebag, but that's intentionally being very sincere. Like, even as a method to really connect with people who I have things in common with, who I wouldn't readily have been able to connect with. So like through Instagram, I have like motorcycle friends, many of which that I now like see all the time. I've met like photography friends that I now do like shooting days with, and all shit, like people that I would have had no other reason why our paths would have crossed ever, but because of this random ass app, and now suddenly we're like besties. So fuck yeah for Instagram.
Totally. No, it's been great. Like, honestly, the people I meet are just so encouraging, and some of like the wisest people. Like I met this one Black woman on Instagram, and I love her. Her name is MJ. And she is just like she herself is not genderqueer. She is a cis, I believe she's hetero woman, but she's just so kind and wise. And like, she found my page because she was like, I'm just trying to understand non-binary and like what it means. And like, we have had very minimal like interaction, but just like her presence and understanding that she just wants to kind of discover this new, this new identity that she has kind of been somehow exposed to, is just like so refreshing. Cause you're just like, oh my God, like you're just so cool. Like this is amazing. So it's social media is a great spot for that. And podcast itself as well. You learn a lot of things.
Totally. I love that she reached out to you like that, because I think the flip side is, well, a couple things, right? Like, especially with everything going on in the world right now, it's like, I think it's important for people to just kind of get out of their comfort zone a little bit, right? And learn more about their fellow, humankind. And so I think that that's important. But I feel like on one of the episodes, TJ, and I don't know, my brain's mush because I was on conference calls for literally like 9 hours. But I feel like there was, we talked about this a little bit on another episode, where it's like social media is a blessing and a curse, right? I want to say it might have been B's episode, where it's like, you have this voice and you share your like innermost personal things, right? And you get a ton of support, but then you also have a bunch of assholes out there who like are just going to be assholes regardless, right? Like, and I mean, especially on a platform like TikTok, like, do you get like, are people assholes, or are you just finding a lot of love?
So I haven't reached, I feel like the reach of welcome, like getting to the point where people who have a different perspective than me are really engaging with my stuff. I did have one woman who was a little confused because one of my friends back in Denver, she has this T-shirt she made called the Itty Bitty Titty Committee, and so I bought one of her shirts and I was wearing it and I tagged myself in it. And this woman was like, "But you're a guy, you don't have tits." And I was like, "Well, one, I'm not a man, thank you, and two, I do have tits because I am a fat person and it's fine. Like, these are A cups, baby."
They're A cups. I mean, TJ, you're such a popular man on social media. Do you get hater comments? It could go both ways.
Well, I mean, that Barstool Chicago article we just talked about earlier. I mean, that was just slammed with hater comments.
Yeah, but that wasn't on your social media. That was on Barstool. Like, I mean, but yeah. I see what you're saying.
I told you. Well, I made this. I mean, granted, I'm joking, but I'm not, because it actually happened. I said on a podcast once that I knew I'd finally started to be like known at some level as a content creator when I started getting harassed on YouTube. Someone went literally on every video I posted and was just like, "You're a faggot." I'm like, okay, that seems like the trolly shit that people on the internet say. So I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, yeah, someone's like photographer, videographer, bullshit, more like faggot. You suck. And I was like, all right, thanks for that wonderful insights, bro. I appreciate you. So yes, I have dealt with some hate on social media.
Yeah. Who are those idiots? Like, I'm that person who I want to say things to people all the time. Trust me. I have a mouth on me, but then I start to type things. I mean, I would never just be like a hater, but particularly lately, obviously, with like politics and things like that. And I start to type things out and then I'm like, you know what? I can't. Like,
not worth it.
Can't involve. Yeah, it's not worth it. I fight enough with DJ.
Oh my God. Yeah. You and me both.
I have no idea, by the way, how you're going to do that podcast, like how he's going to do with your podcast, or like when you are on his, like for the next month or whatever. Oh my God.
I know. When you said that, I was like, you realize, right? Like you realize that it's going to be nothing but us yelling at each other. And like, no, this is a terrible idea.
I mean, I'll listen because it'll be really funny for me. Like, I'll just sit there and get drunk and listen. It'll be great. But oof, for you, I don't know, man. You've got some, I don't know.
I mean, I love DJ, but we had maybe like a month-long phase where I go through these bursts where I talk a lot about like current events and social media, one of the things I'm annoyed about. And there was like a month period where DJ commented on like literally everything I posted, and we were having, and he's respectful. We definitely don't like scream at each other, but he's always, if you want to have like a dissenting opinion and have a conversation with that person, I think DJ is like one of the great ones, because of the people that I don't generally agree with, he's one of the few people that I feel like I can have like super productive conversations about those things.
Yeah, it depends on he's very calm when he talks about things, but like I am one of those people where that's not true. He likes to instigate the fights, which normally I'm one of those people where I'm like, talk shit, get hit is my motto. So like when you start, it's when I'm like, okay, all right, so that's coming up. Those hoop earrings are coming out of the ear holes.
I would kill we should have like a tell, right? Like, I don't know, maybe it's a word, you just yell out strawberry, or maybe it's a look you give me, and I know you're about to jump across the table like a fucking New Jersey housewife, right? And I'm going to get my camera ready so that I can catch it on film, because like, holy moly.
Yeah, I'll never forget, was it Thanksgiving? Was that the one where it just was all hell broke loose?
But I heard all about it from Joe.
No, you were there.
I was with my.
You were there for one of them.
Oh, Christmas maybe. I think it was Christmas.
Oh yeah, it was Christmas. Yeah, you missed it, TJ. It was. I am an adamant person where like, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, I don't know how to explain it to you, so I just get really mad that you're not getting it.
Ooh, same girl, same shit.
And it was quite the brawl. And I believe at the end of the night, after I left, Joe was like, or DJ told Joe, he was like, I'm scared he's not going to come back.
Oh.
That's me. It kind of broke my heart, but I was like, God, you should be scared, you asshole.
I'm telling you. I mean, he means well. He really does have a good heart, but
He does. He's a good guy.
we're all just very different.
He needs to delete that Fox News app from his tablet.
No joke. So it's funny, actually, when I was talking to my sister, and I talk like multiple times a day, and she had interrupted me. She gets bored, and so she calls me just like when she's bored or when she's on a walk. And she had interrupted me when I was like trying to do some research and put together this outline. And we were talking. She was like, well, let's talk through it. Because sometimes she's a good sounding board for stuff like that. She's like, let's talk through it. And so when I was explaining to her the premise of the episode, and I think I even said this to you when we had talked, she was like, wait a minute. She's like, that must be pretty, and this is clearly an ignorance thing, but I laughed because I thought, oh, maybe. But she was like, I feel like, she's like, it would be great to be non-binary because then you literally could like date everyone. I was like, I mean, I think it's really fucking hard, just period. Like the fact that like I could date everyone, that would be amazing and not amazing all at the same time, right? Also, if you were TJ, like imagine the amount of people sliding into those DMs, men, women, whatever. TJ, you would have no time.
You would just enjoy it all.
I enjoy all that I enjoy. I'll say that.
Foot in mouth. Don't say anything more.
I try to be coy a lot on here, but it's not always easy when you serve me up easy shit like that.
But like seriously though, Winnie, like what is dating like for you? Like, is it? I mean, look, it's dating, so it's probably a pain in the ass regardless. But like, are you out there dating? Are you on the apps? What's the story?
Yeah, dating is weird, especially when you get kind of like down in like nitty gritty. Because I think when you look at overarching, you think of non-binary, you kind of think of like oh whatever, like it seems very casual and very flowy, which works for gender. But then you start diving into like sexuality and sexual preference and attraction, what kind of attracts you in those senses. And I think the one thing, and I'm sure this will get a lot of hate from gay men, they'll just be like, but it's just a preference. But I think it also just depends on like how you're presenting. Mm-hmm. So me as an individual, I am non-binary, which means I don't necessarily identify with male or female, kind of both or fluid between the two. But I am definitely more feminine presenting. So, I got my high-waisted shorts on and my sassy little crop top tees. And I like to wear my big hoop earrings, and, like wear some eyeshadow, put on some makeup. And, that's very feminine presenting. So I think that really narrows it down, especially in the gay community. So, and again, I have full respect for gay men and like all they go through and all the shit they have to deal with too. But like, there's also a lot of misogyny in that community on its own, which is like,
sure, it's
hard to like blame them, but it's also kind of hard to like accept it as a part of things. It's like, well, what it's like to be oppressed. So why are you being so kind of disregarding of this entire, presenting femininity that comes with, being a person. So there's a bit of like that kind of gets involved as well. And then there's always that notion of like, I remember once I was on a date and this gay guy was like, literally he sat down and I was like, hi, how's it going? And we had a drink. We maybe had like a maybe 15-minute conversation. And I was like, oh, well, like, do you want to get another round of drinks? And he was like, you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. If I wanted to date a chick, I would date a woman. Ooh. And just kind of like got up and like left. And it was just like, oh, all right, sir. Like, goodbye. Yeah. So you were into that stuff a lot, actually. It's just unfortunate.
I mean, but I don't get it because wait, how did you guys meet?
It was through an app. So like there are apps that I'm on, and this was a couple of years ago. But, thankfully, I mean, back then, like, it was very structured. It was very binary. So, like, you were either male or female looking for a male or a female.
Yeah.
You were gay, straight, bi, all that stuff. But that kind of has expanded in the last couple of years. So I'm finding that, especially non-binary people like myself who are presenting on the, gender spectrum of how you put yourself as, like, somewhat feminine, somewhat masculine, somewhere in between. Like, I find that a lot of people who are interested in that are more willing to kind of engage with that on a relationship level more are bisexual men and pansexual men, which I don't know if you are familiar with that term.
Tell us, our listeners.
Okay, well, pansexual is more, or bisexual, of course, is attracted to both genders, where pansexual is more about personalities and the person themselves versus their gender. So they're kind of similar, but at the same time, not very similar at the same time. So it's a thing that I'm still wrapping my head around, but I found that more pansexual or bisexual men tend to be drawn to me just because I do have a little bit of those masculine and feminine energies, more feminine than masculine, I would say. But yeah, so like dating itself is a little difficult because you kind of get into this extremely complicated structure of like masculine versus feminine, and like there's also like a lot of just body issues in the gay community, not issues, but like just body stigmatization against like, you know, more plus size men. And so for those of us who are a little chubbier, like it's fine if you're more masculine and like bare presenting, you know, because it's kind of got that like macho manliness to it. But if you're like more heavy set and like feminine, it's kind of, you know, there's a lot of like those issues in like gay profiles. It's like no fats, no femmes, and like right there, those are the first two things. And I'm like, well, that's me.
Well,
so
and I feel like there's a lot of body shaming in all dating, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's not just a particularly gay or, you know, queer community thing at all. But yeah, so dating is difficult, but I will say the dating apps have actually gotten a lot more evolved since they've opened. So like I've noticed that OkCupid, I just rejoined like 2 months ago, actually had this, you know, breadth.
You can select it.
Yeah, they have like, you know, non-binary, your pronouns, like, you know, you get to kind of present that stuff first and foremost, where I think previously the issue was they were leaving it open that you kind of had to engage with that on the first date, which is not easy.
Oh,
sure. I've had so I have a couple friends who are gay, one bisexual, and then a previous guest we have is polyamorous. And in that community of like my closer friends who have lifestyles that are slightly different than mine in that way, they've all spoken about their experience with OkCupid and that it is their preferred app because of just the act of having the ability to select identities that most closely align to the identity that you actually are, I'm sure is a feeling of inclusion that when you're trying to like date and find love, that why wouldn't you want to feel included, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially with OkCupid, like, I mean, I was on there a long time ago, but then I just rejoined, like I said, a couple months ago. And like the engagement, I would say, is still fairly low, but that's okay. Like the fact that it's more of an inclusive, you know, allowing me to put it out there, like, here, this is who I'm getting, this is who I am, this is what you're getting into. You know, proceed with caution.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do that on Bumble. They have no idea what they're getting themselves into. Good luck, everybody.
They know.
I'm like, do you think they know and they still choose it? What's wrong with these women?
I think they probably can tell. But here's my thing about OkCupid is that like I feel like OkCupid is the dating app that gets the most catfish.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So like that's got to be hard too to add another element into it. God, like I can't even. Geez, Louise, I take back everything I said about it being easier.
I mean, it's not a bad thing though. Like it's one of those things where, I mean, I'm kind of like, my mom describes it as being a bad, you know, my mom says I'm a bad bitch, which I will take any day of the week, but it's kind of like this notion that I'm like, well, I mean, you're either into it or you're not, so like take it or leave it, which has been nice, especially with OkCupid, because it really does just like set it up where you're like, this is who I am. And like, you know, I have not been shameful of putting pictures on with a full face of makeup and like my big ass hoop earrings and being like, yeah, you want some of this? Come get it. The engagement's still low, but that's okay. Like, you know, at least I would rather take my time and wait for somebody who's, you know, willing to engage in that, you know, in this kind of new area of existence, and that's okay with me.
It's funny that you said that because this is something that I've never really talked about, and it's just kind of coming to me now as you said that. In my experience on Bumble, I've talked on the podcast numerous times about how I go through periods of pretty reckless swiping where I'm just like barely even interacting with my phone and just swiping right on every single profile. And with that comes you certainly match with people who maybe you aren't attracted to or you don't have anything in common with, but I don't feel inherently bad at all the time about letting those connections just kind of fade off. But what ended up having me really reconsider that is there were a handful of times where I matched with people who were pansexual, transsexual, things that I would not be interested in. And then instead of not engaging and just like, oh, I'm going to quickly unmatch because I do that a lot. It's like, no, now I feel like I like have to be like, hey, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. And so now because of that, I've stopped like doing the reckless swipe because I was like, hey, it was great of me in that moment not to put myself in my own back to like not want to hurt somebody's feelings. But what I realized is I'm literally hurting everyone's feelings by doing that shit. So I was like,
oh, I think that's what they call growth, folks. I'm just
yeah, I know. I swear to God, I like the last time it happened was probably like a month and a half ago. And I was just like, man, I feel like the biggest piece of shit doing this to people. And I was like, and why am I only feeling like a piece of shit to people who are transgender, but not when I'm doing it to like just a random like 25-year-old girl or whatever. I mean, I think the way it made me kind of re-examine the way I was interacting with it in general was a positive thing. So at least I got that out of it.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that's a really big thing is and it's also like there just comes this other filter within the queer community, especially in the trans community, because I don't know if it's clear, but like non-binary is also part of that trans community. People will argue that left and right, but it's part of, to me, I think we're either part of the same community or we're sisters of it, or siblings, and I should say, not to gender it. But there's also this level of passing, and like, do you pass as a cisgendered woman, or do you pass as like a cisgendered man if you're as a trans man or trans woman? So yeah, there's just like this whole weird, complicated level of being like in that non-binary trans community that I think a lot of people don't necessarily consider, but
Sure.
It is an important thing to recognize. So good for you for recognizing that it could be a little harmful. Growth.
You actually just mentioned something that I wanted to talk about. You made the joke about not gendering it, but obviously there is an importance of pronouns here.
Ooh.
And I think it's interesting to hear you talk because you've mentioned multiple times, I don't want to misquote you, but there was like a lot of talk about like feminine energy and things like that. And I think to myself, it's interesting to hear you say that because when I asked you what your pronouns were, you said him and her, right? Correct?
Yep.
Okay. So it's interesting that it sounds like when you talk, I feel like you sway one way more so than the other when I hear you talk. So that's interesting. How that works,
Yeah, for sure. And like to me, I mean, pronouns to me, like in a personal interaction, are not that important because I'm fine if somebody calls me he, I'm fine if someone calls me she, and I'm fine if somebody refers to me as they. I'm just selfish that way with my pronouns. I'll take them all. But but I have, trans friends who like the misgendering and mishaps with pronouns, like it's a very traumatic experience and it kind of triggers this like inherent feeling of being othered. So like when I'm very proactive and very like staunch about people respecting pronouns, it's not necessarily because it affects me, because I honestly don't care what you call me. Mm-hmm. But sure. I have friends who it actively affects them and it affects their environment and how they how they interact with it. And the one thing I just always want to promote is just an equal environment for everybody to thrive as their own selves. So, I have a friend named E, who I don't think would be upset with me naming them. But he is a trans man. When I first met him, he was going by she, her pronouns. And I immediately met him and I was like, but you give off such a masculine energy. Like, is that, or is that what you want? And it was only when I met his girlfriend that I became very good friends with, that she was like, no, actually, he goes by he with me, but is just kind of like trying to like slowly get himself acclimated to like the preferred pronouns that he has, which is a problematic statement, excuse me. Pronouns, his pronouns that he wants to go by, he was just slowly warming himself up to it. So like that to me is like, oh shit, like this is a really important thing to him that he is nervous to bring up in casual conversation at work, sure. etc. So, pronouns to me are important, not because they affect me, but just because of other people. So it's really important to normalize them.
Yeah.
Which shoots me in the foot because I definitely am more feminine leaning and more, female energy. And, somebody called me, my dog's name is Brick, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, Brick's dad." And I was like, "Get that out of your mouth." Like,
Yeah, you're like, I feel like more of a sassy auntie.
Yeah, pretty much. You can call me Aunt Winnie. But, it doesn't really matter to me, but just seeing how it affects my friends who are in that trans community and how damaging it can be is just a really important thing. So I think it's, I love that there's this new incentive to really include them in, work environments or dating environments. So they are very important, even if it doesn't affect you directly. It's creating this inclusive environment in dating and just in life in general.
Yeah.
I think I've seen a lot on Instagram, on LinkedIn, in my career, in whatever, people like you see on Instagram bios, people who maybe are just like heteronormative cisgender people, but they have like their pronoun listed in their bio just as a thing of kind of like normalizing the importance of it. And I love that as an ally. And, it's kind of funny because when Jenna had brought you up and said how great you were and that she wanted to have you on the pod, literally my first question I asked her was like, are we firm on what his preferred pronouns are? Like, I want to make sure that I don't like fuck that up. And I think having a little more awareness and people like being, like you said, over the last couple of years, I think you do see that's way more at the forefront. And I think not just from people who are trans, who are gender fluid, who are whatever lifestyle, but people who are just allies who are doing that as well. And I love seeing that.
Yeah, no, it's a huge thing. And I took up a huge incentive at my office where it was just like, how do we bring this up? For Pride Month, they really want to make sure there was this inclusive state, especially with, the Black Lives Matter movement really coming through and a lot of those Black trans lives being endangered, especially with the protests. That was a really big incentive for me to be like, well, I really can't do much just because of the pandemic and I'm at high risk and I really can't go on, I've been to a couple of protests, but I can't go to every single one I want. But like, how do we create this, how can I help create this kind of inclusive environment, even if it's just at work or how people interact with each other? So it was this really big, exciting thing at work to really be able to bring in pronouns, people's signatures and how it's approached. And so it's a really big thing. And, I've met straight people who are like, my doctor, for example, was like, "Hi, I'm Dr. Blah, blah. My pronouns are he, him." And I was like, "Oh shit, hey, doctor." I was like, "Oh, hey."
That's awesome.
So it does create like a really welcoming environment. I think it's really important just for inclusivity. And you want people to feel their best and feel safe in any place they are. So,
totally.
So yeah.
Actually going to say your agency is really great about that. I work with a lot of people from your agency and it's even after Pride, I've seen a lot of pronouns in people's signatures.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And like even our new CEO who just got I think appointed like a year ago was like super advocate for it. He was one of the first people to change it in his signature and reached out to me and E and we're just like, "Hey, you two fucking, this is great. Can you guys get on this Zoom call and explain to everybody?" Because it's weird because like it's become so normalized. And I guess because I just live in that kind of queer community, in that queer world where it is such a normalized part of everyday life that like people were like, "What are pronouns?" And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean pronouns?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, like you guys don't know." Okay. Like it's weird just coming from a cisgender heteronormative, world where people still don't get it. So it is very refreshing to see it kind of come into life with straight allies and people who are cisgendered. So
totally. I mean, like, and like for those like people that are out there that are still kind of learning and figuring it out and want to be respectful, like, what do you suggest they do if they were to meet someone, right? Like, do you just, I guess you ask everyone, right, what your pronoun is? Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's more like, I think it's hard, especially when you meet people who are clearly, I shouldn't say clearly. When you meet people who are, in a heteronormative relationship, like, you make the assumption that they're both cisgendered heteronormative, heterosexual people. But I find that it's still a little awkward to be like, "Hi, like, what's your name, Kyle? Like, what are your pronouns?" And he's like, he, him, It's hard. It's kind of an awkward thing. So I just find that in most ways that I have seen it introduced where it's the least awkward is just to introduce yourself and then your pronouns. So like, you know, with TJ, you'd be like, hey, I'm TJ, and my pronouns are he, him, you know.
Yeah.
Just because it creates that environment where you're just like, you're already basically exposing them without saying like, hey, I'm an ally. You're basically being like, oh, this is a normal thing for me, so I expect that normality from you. And like, it just kind of creates this really inclusive community, because I mean, you never know who you're meeting and what their pronouns are, and quite frankly, like, there's this huge thing and huge push in the non-binary community where the assumption is, because we are not non-binary, that because we are non-binary, that we just automatically use they them pronouns, which is not the case. Like, I've met several non-binary people who use she her, or he sure, or he she, like me, or he him. You know, it's just because you're not non-binary doesn't mean that your pronouns immediately become non-gendered. So again, a very huge complex thing that it's hard to explain, but you know, it's an ever evolving situation. Sorry, I just totally rambled.
No, I think that's really helpful. I think what I love so much about you is that in a world that is somebody who's not living in it, right? I mean, living in your shoes. And what great shoes they are.
They're fabulous.
I feel like there's so much gray, and there's so much area to, like, I don't know, just sort of feel, I don't know how to say it, but like sort of feel as if you're like, right, like in this like gray area. And the one thing that, I mean, there are a million things I love about you, but the thing that I think I love the most, and I realized it the other night when we were walking to the store to get overpriced limes for our margaritas. That guy was such a liar, that dick.
I know.
Yeah. By the way, guys, 60 cents for a lime is ridiculous.
Too much.
Anyway, I noticed this when we were walking to the store, is that you are so confident in who you are. It is, I'm like,
can confirm. I'm looking at his Instagram right now.
I'm like envious of it, because as someone who, like, TJ joked, I don't even think this was on air, it might have been on air, where he was like, do you have any problems? Like, do you have any issues? Is your life really that hard? I mean, no, it's not. I'm going to be honest, it's not. I mean, I don't have our shit, but like, in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty solid. Like, I'm not nearly as confident. And so I think like it's really something remarkable to just, every time I meet people who are confident, right, I'm always like, man, I want to be like that one day when I grow up. But like, you know what I mean? I think for some reason it's just so great. It's so great because, like, I mean, I would feel so like sort of in this gray area. Like, I think it would be hard for me personally to feel so confident. So I think it's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that. It did not come naturally. I can tell you that right now. But it did take a lot of just kind of, you know, it's becoming confident in that gray area that really kind of is how I got there, where it's just like, you know what, like, yeah, I live in this weird area where I don't really know what the fuck's going on, and nobody else really does either, but like, I'm here, so it's a valid existence, and just kind of being like, yeah, whatever, like, okay, it is what it is. So, but thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And guys, I also want to announce on air right now, Winnie also just followed me back. So we are officially besties.
Vomit. Winnie, whose side are you on here? You're my friend.
He has, don't worry. He has a lot of work to do. I expect some helicoptering.
It's on the way, buddy. Keep those DMs open. I'm a photographer. I'll do it real, like, artistically.
Oh, I love it. I'm into it. Let's love a good art.
I mean, Winnie's in the creative field, so it might give you a run for your money, but okay.
It's true. I have a lot of light. I have a ring light and everything, buddy. Bring it on.
Same here, man. I got 3 of them. You don't want none. I can do triple light source on my helicopter pics. You don't.
Hey-o.
It'll be like perfect freeze frame with it like swinging at its maximum apex.
Jesus.
Hey-o. With some good blur leading up to it.
Gross. This is where I tap out of this conversation.
You're like, and we're done. Bye, Winnie.
Today's penis. So the last thing I wanted to end on, because I feel like we've gone into some, like, really, we've talked a lot about some really interesting stuff. Got a little heavy there. So I want to lighten it up just a smidge. And we used to do this a lot, actually, in the beginning, and then we kind of like fell off, and then sometimes we revisit it. But where like people tell us like one of their like best dating stories, like one of their funniest, craziest, could be like the worst, but it's funny dating story.
Oh yeah.
Do you have one that you want to share with us?
Oh boy, do I. So when I first moved to Chicago, I was like super jazzed. It was about 4 years ago.
Jazz.
I just moved here and I was like, all right, here we go. We're going to go on this great date. It's going to be wonderful. And I went up with this, went on a date with this guy, and like we automatically hit it off. He was very sweet, very sincere. We just had different preferences for relationships. He was polyamorous, and I was not quite ready for that. I don't know if I ever will be. I'm selfish, and I want it all to myself.
Me too.
But he was very sweet. We went on this date, and we were walking to go get food after we had several drinks. And we were waiting for the cross light to change. We were holding hands, and I could, I mean, you know me. I'm a very outspoken person. So I was sitting there holding hands, and I hear this, like, clearly intoxicated couple behind us. And, like, the girl's like, oh, my God, they're holding hands. And I was like, and so, like, I squeezed his hand tighter, and he's, like, oblivious. He's just rambling off about some TV show he loves, and, like, just kept going and was not paying attention at all. And so I keep looking behind us, being like, yeah, it's a great show. Great idea. And so finally, like, the guy said something. I don't remember what it was. And, like, in my head, I was like, all right, time to unleash the Kraken, bitch. Like, go get him. So I, like, let go of his hand. I turn around, and I'm about to be like, you know what? And, like, before I can get it out of my mouth, this chick is, like, she's sitting there next to us, and she turns around, and she goes, you know what? Yeah, the two guys holding hands, but at least it was, like, a bunch of crackheads, like, you two motherfuckers. And, like,
wow.
Went off on these people. And, like, I was, like, so stunned. Like, I had this, like, my jaw hit the floor, and she was just going off on them, being like, you don't fucking talk to them like that. Who cares if the two guys holding hands? Fuck you. At least they still got their teeth. Like, I was like, oh, my God.
I love it. What neighborhood were you in?
We were downtown somewhere. I don't quite remember. I want to say it's probably in Gold Coast, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, it was the funniest thing ever, because I was just like, oh God, like, I turned around ready to, like, go to war. Like, you know me, I'm ready to turn around and, like, start boxing. But, like, before I could even get a word out, this girl was like, I don't think so.
That's awesome.
So it was quite the best.
That's awesome. TJ, I feel like that should be a lesson for you as well, for your social media stuff. That was the one thing that I remember someone saying to me with the when I used to write for the Huffington Post, they were like, never, ever, ever, ever respond to the haters, because what will happen is people will respond for you. So I feel like that's exactly what happened, which is awesome. And it's nice to know that, you don't have to do it. You don't always have to fight that fight alone, which is nice.
No, it's nice. It's good. It's good to have allies. And I think when you have an allyship that comes from out of nowhere, you're just like, oh shit, all right, like, the world ain't that bad.
Totally. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us today. I really appreciate it. I mean, I see you all the time, and I selfishly would like to keep you all to myself, but I guess I can share you with our listeners. Whatever.
A little love to go around. Yeah. We won't give them too much.
Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you online before we wrap up?
Where they can find you, like, what's your address? Because you got fans. They're coming for you.
Ayo. Well, I live on 37th. On Instagram, you can find me at Winnie Wears What, and I am actually launching a podcast that delves further into the queer perspective, coming in September, I believe, called Winnie's World. So please tune in. I don't know where the hell it's going to be, but keeping your eye out for it. It'll come.
Yep, and we'll let everyone know once you launch that. We love to lift up, obviously, our guests and stuff. So we can make a post about it too when you go.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, TJ, this is
awesome. It's all me. But before we close, quick shout out to Darian Lewis of the Be Positive podcast. Just shared on his Instagram. He bought some merch. Shout out, you two dope souls over at Menage-A-Podcast. So Darian, Dario, you're two of the all-time greats out there. We love you guys so much. You guys do that. Go to our merch store, teespring.com/stores/Menage-A-Podcast. Get that shit. If you want to find more about Menage-A-Pod, head over to our Instagram at Menage-A-Podcast, where you will find our link tree that includes links to our Facebook group, website, top episodes, merch store, and more. A quick thank you to everyone who makes the show happen. Wonderful guests like Winnie, my beautiful co-host Jenna, me because I'm great, you guys because you're awesome. And until next time, share us in your IG stories and find any way you can to tell a friend about the best podcast out there, Menage-A-Pod. And of course, good luck out there.